Rust for PC is a highly competitive multiplayer survival game that challenges players to explore and salvage the landscape, cooperating or conflicting with one another in the pursuit of scarce resources and coveted blueprints. If you're new to the island, Rust can be a brutal uphill battle against seasoned players, deadly wildlife, and trigger-happy grad students, where very little is explained from the onset and trial by fire, often in a very literal sense, will be the primary lesson plan for progression. My name is Spilldrop, and at the time of recording, I've got around 4,500 hours in Rust, mostly in build servers and roleplay environments, because while others were studying the blade, I was learning how to build compact and highly efficient base layouts like the ones you're about to see, starting with day 1 beginner bases and ending with some advanced late game flank base designs. So if you're eager to see more, then consider leaving a like on the video or subscribing to the channel. There are thousands of tutorials showcasing base designs and layouts for any size group, any special purpose, or for any base location that you can imagine. And while I strongly encourage new players to explore these tutorials to see the extent of what's possible, most of these videos expect a certain baseline of understanding. Now, what I've got in store for you today won't give you everything you need to understand advanced building concepts like wall stacking, pixel gaps, or whatever kind of dark magic Lucky Llama is cooking up at any given time, but this video will give you the tools to get a very solid start in base building, as well as some pro tips that you won't find anywhere else for taking your early builds to the next level. Without further ado, let's get straight into the tutorial with a fundamental feature of base design, the difference between the Hardside and Softside textures for base structures. Each structure has a reinforced Hardside, which is intended to face the outside of your base, and a less protected Softside, which should generally face the interior of your base. It's worth noting that the Softside textures are easier to destroy even with handheld tools in some cases than the Hardside textures, which are often resistant to anything other than raid materials. Not to get too deep in the weeds here, my best advice is to make sure that the Hardside textures of each structure you place end up facing the outside of your base. With that in mind, there is another secret feature of one specific kind of wall, the default stone wall texture, and I'm going to show you how to use this feature to your advantage. From the top down, you can see the hard side of these walls facing to the right and the soft side facing to the left. But when I flip the hard side of this wall to the right, you'll notice that you can see just a bit more of the foundation at the foot of the wall. This is not just a visual feature, but an actual change in the hitbox, allowing you to place furniture even closer than against the soft side wall here. A few pixels may seem fairly pointless, but this can make a huge difference when every inch of space can be the deciding factor for whether or not your base survives the night. I'll get into this a little bit further when we start building out these models near the end of the video, but for now, let's take a tour of these different base designs. For the first base of this tour, we're going to take a look at a very simple 2x1 that any player can set up. Each of these models is designed to last the night without drawing too much attention, so you have a base when you log on the next day. A 2x1 base design is very simple. It starts with 2 square foundations and a triangular foundation for an airlock. That airlock prevents people from pushing through your front doors into the core of your base, which is a process known as going deep. The inside of this airlock is incredibly straightforward. You have 2 single doors here, which prevent anyone from being able to push deeper into the base even if both doors are open like this. Keep in mind, if you close this door first, anybody trying to go deep will be trapped inside your base, but they will also be able to move into this room here. So if somebody kills you with your doors open like this, your best move is to close this inner door first, preventing them from getting any deeper into your base. The other thing that I've included in each of these airlocks is a campfire. And while this provides some additional comfort that you can see right above your health and hunger bars to help you passively regenerate health, it also allows you to tell if somebody else is lurking nearby. When you're by yourself standing around a campfire, you get a maximum of 50% comfort. However, if someone's standing within range of the campfire, that comfort will jump up to 75%. So if you're planning to leave your base to go do some farming and you turn on your campfire and you see that comfort spike above 50%, you know that there's a door camper lurking nearby waiting to take advantage of you when you leave the safety of your base. Another feature I've added to this airlock to make it even more secure is an additional airlock created by this inner double door. You'll see when this door is open, I can still see and access some of the things in this first room, but I can't push through this doorway because of this door here blocking my path. If you have someone trapped inside that airlock, I recommend opening this door first, getting a weapon, and then opening this airlock door so that you can address the threat accordingly. For this first base layout, I wanted to keep things incredibly simple for beginner players who are just getting their footing in Rust. So nothing that you're going to see here is super complicated. Almost everything in this design is a default blueprint or something that you can find very easily along the roads or in monuments while you are scavenging for resources. I've included some items which I strongly recommend that you collect in your adventures so that way you can get a better start, as they will greatly help you as your base begins to evolve. Taking a look at this first room here, we have a tier 1 workbench, we have 2 sleeping bags, we have 3 low-grade based furnaces, an igniter that you see right there on the wall, and of course a lantern up on top of the tier 1 workbench to provide a little bit of extra light in this space. You may notice there's a bear rug poking through here. That and this igniter here are not default blueprints, but they are very easy to find and are very common drops when you're breaking barrels or looting boxes. Through these double doors, you will find your TC room module. In the back corner, of course, is the tool cupboard, and down along the floor are various boxes for storing your loot. This is the most compact version of what I would consider the most basic layout for this tool cupboard module. There's no shelves needed, no DLCs required, and the only things that you need a blueprint for are the items on the wall and that battery that you see on the large box here to the left. It's pretty easy to navigate in this small base because these sleeping bags give you a little bit of a lift, which allows you to walk right up on top of these small boxes. These small boxes then let you walk up on top of these large boxes with no trouble at all, and you've got quite a lot of storage in here, as you can see. The upkeep for this base is incredibly minimal, and I'll show you the overall cost for each of these models as we build them out, but this upkeep cost is so cheap that I recommend building at least one base similar to this outside your primary base so that you have a fallback in case you get raided. Unlike these standard rugs on the wall here, which don't provide any additional comfort, this bear rug actually has a secret purpose. If you stand underneath the head and neck of the bear rug, you can see the comfort above my health bar is going up to 100%, letting me passively regenerate health as long as I'm standing underneath the head and neck of this rug. On this wall here, I also have an electrical combiner, an electrical branch, a splitter, a switch, and a small battery down here on this box. I recommend collecting as many of these as you like, or at least one of each, as it's much easier to research these than trying to go through the tech tree and spending additional scrap to get these very essential electrical components. I've also included a button here, which attaches to our igniter. As you can see, following this red wire down along the wall and the floor there and up over to the switch. You'll notice that if I press this button here while there is wood in each of these furnaces, that igniter will spark and cause these furnaces to kick into action, like so. This button allows you to use the igniter without any other external source of power, as simply pressing the button generates enough power to activate the igniter. A nice little tip to save some power and time while you're playing Rust and give you this kind of nice feature of being able to turn on all of your furnaces at once. Another pro tip that no one else would give you in Rust is to hang on to these small signs or any sort of canvases that you find in your adventures, and to spend a little bit of time time at night or when you are waiting by making some art in your base. Sometimes a friendly conversation about a provocative piece of art on your base may be the thing that saves you from a raid or introduces you to a brand new friend. Before we move on, taking a look at the outside of this base, you may notice that the tool cupboard module is fully upgraded to sheet metal. Some other Rust players may advise you to stick with stone, but I'd recommend that you do a raid cost evaluation and determine if it's worth it for you. Keep in mind here that a sheet metal wall has 1,000 hit points, whereas a stone wall has 500 hit points, while your metal doors will have 250 hit points each. So if we look at the cost for raiding this base, currently the cheapest way to get into your tool cupboard would be going through 3 sheet metal doors for a total of 750 hit points, compared to the 1,000 hit points that would be needed to break one of these walls or to break the roof up here on top of the tool cupboard. So while having sheet metal walls may make your base a little bit more appealing to raiders who are looking for metal fragments for their upkeep or for crafting, they're going to be a lot less likely to go through your walls and will more likely take a raid path that is easier to defend by going through your doors. Moving on to our second model here, we're looking at the same footprint but with some honeycomb around the outside. So this is the same 2x1 that we were looking at on this model here. However, we have added stone triangles all the way around the primary internal square foundations. This stone honeycomb will make it even more unlikely that a raider will go through the walls in a raid attempt and will generally force raiders to go through the door path. Jumping into the airlock, we have the same airlock as before. Not much has changed because this is a very simple design, but it works incredibly well. Same idea moving into the core here. We've got our double door, single door airlock there, our tier 1 workbench, some low grade based furnaces, and some sleeping bags down here along the floor. For each of these models, I've stuck with 2 sleeping bags as it's pretty common for Rust players to start off with at least one friend while they're getting the hang of things. If you've got another player joining you, you can always put another sleeping bag pushing into the airlock here, though you may have to get rid of your campfire in that case. This TC room is a little bit more advanced because we have added a half-high shelf. This requires you to add some additional buildup on the outside so that you can get the placement for your shelf inside the base. This floating shelf allows you to almost double the storage inside your core, whereas on the previous model we had just 3 large boxes and 2 small boxes. You'll notice that in this variant we have 2 additional large boxes up here and a small box there, adding significantly greater storage capacity to this design. The upkeep here is a little bit higher on the stone cost, as you can see, than on the metal fragment cost, and that's because more of this base is left stone because there are more walls protecting your inner core. In this design you really only need to upgrade the roof to sheet metal to prevent people from raiding from the top down. This next design is not for beginners and will feature some pretty advanced concepts. So I really strongly recommend trying out this design on a build server before you try to build it in your first wipe. The footprint may look very similar to the last design, as you can see here, only a slight difference between the two, but when we get inside you'll notice just how different this design truly is. Another very standard airlock, functional but simple, and this is where things begin to change. You'll notice in this design the wall along the back there is now hollow with a window and a floor frame added. We also have our standard tier 1 workbench here, a research table added there, a barbecue grill, small box and large box down here, as well as our 2 sleeping bags, and behind this research bench is what I like to call Moneycomb. This is non-traditional honeycomb which can be used for other purposes, and in this case we've got our same 3 furnaces pushed back into this Moneycomb where they are both usable and acting as additional reinforcement for the base. You can see we also have our igniter here on the wall. It's wired in to a button in the core. Behind our tier 1 workbench and this barbecue grill here we have a sheet metal door, and if we open it up you'll see that there is a shelf shelf back here with 2 large boxes and 2 small boxes, as well as a lantern there. This also serves to create another double door, single door airlock to provide a little bit of extra security for your base without opening up the core door here. As most of these boxes are sealed behind this double door, you can add locks to them, allowing you to open them from outside, but forcing raiders to break this door and the boxes themselves to get the loot that's stored within. This is a nice way to easily access this loot that you've got stashed behind the door without making it accessible to raiders. But pushing through this double door, things start to get really complicated. Now this looks somewhat similar to our last design, but you'll notice that each one of these triangles off the main core square are Moneycomb of their own sort. On this side here, we have our tool cupboard locked away behind a window. On this side here, we have 3 more furnaces, another igniter, and a floating small box. Our 2 buttons here that attach to those igniters. We have a half-high shelf in here, just like in the last model, allowing you to store a little bit more up on this upper shelf. We can peek between these 2 boxes here to the tool cupboard there, and you can see the upkeep here, which is quite a bit higher than the last 2 designs, especially on this metal fragment stack. Down below, we've got 4 large boxes and a campfire, which can give you a little bit of extra comfort. I've also got some small batteries here tied into a very rudimentary electrical system, which doesn't have a primary power input, but if you find yourself a solar panel, then you've got a really great way to charge these batteries and start getting electricity to your home. Last but not least, poking through this door back here, we have a vending machine. As you can see just by looking at it, this has quite a lot of hit points, 1,250 to be exact, so it is a force to be reckoned with if somebody decides to raid through the walls on this Moneycomb. Additionally, if someone chooses to break this vending machine to get to this door so they can break into the core here, they will lose half of whatever is in that vending machine simply by destroying it, making it a very unappealing raid path for most players. One thing to keep in mind about this base design is that it is a little bit tough to navigate. Jumping onto this large box here can be a bit tricky, so what I recommend is jumping up onto the research bench and then walking down onto the box for a very easy and almost guaranteed path into your core. And last but not least is what I would consider a pro level 2x1. Now, many pros are not going to start with a 2x1 base design, especially if there are more than one of them playing at a time. However, a very common tactic in high level play is to have a secondary base that has additional kits for raid defense or additional storage for stashing loot on the off chance that your main base gets raided. It can be advantageous to counter a raid on your main base from a flank that the raiders won't expect when compared to defending from inside the base that they're actively attacking. Taking a look at it from up above, you can see that we've got some solar panels up here to generate power. We've got a little bit more reinforcement on the ceiling. However, things are going to look incredibly different on the inside of this base. Right away, you'll notice up here we have a Tesla coil, which is an electrical deployable that will create an electric field within a certain radius when power is supplied to it. That electric field will cause significant discomfort to anyone who is trapped within that radius, making it a great way to defend your airlock from unexpected guests. Now, taking a look inside the base, things are even more unusual than in the previous design. That's because we're using one of my secret techniques that you might not see anywhere else. These prison cell walls allow you to stack items such as these small boxes, creating very unique base layouts that would otherwise be completely impossible. And before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I want to show you exactly how this Tesla coil works, so that way if you find a Tesla coil like this in a box during your adventures, you might decide to keep it rather than recycle it. This switch here is going to feed 13 rust watts per minute into this Tesla coil and apply a slight shock to the surrounding area. As you can see, it's a bit uncomfortable to stand near while it is on. Taking a look at the rest of this module now, you can see that we've got the same tier 1 workbench back there. We've got a furnace back there. Got our 2 sleeping bags down here, and then some other slight changes. In addition to those common deployables, we have our engineering workbench, a number of small boxes down there and along the walls here, a large wicker barrel from the jungle DLC, a small box down below the engineering workbench, of course, some storage adapters wherever they'll fit, one of these overhead lights from the interior decor DLC, a repair bench here for repairing any of your gear or applying any skins that you've purchased to your items, a switch that turns this light on and off, of course, to save on that electricity bill, and something that you may not have seen ever before, and that would be the use of these tiny laser detectors, which you can see underneath that box there and this planter pot here, that act as additional stability so that you can place even more items in these prison cell walls without any issue at all. Of course, removing those laser detectors will cause that pot to break and this box as well, so I recommend putting them in a place where you're not going to need to move them around much at all, otherwise you might risk breaking anything that's floating on those laser detectors. One cool feature about this design is that you can actually swap this tier 1 for a tier 2 when you need to upgrade your base by simply picking up anything that's in this triangle and snapping a tier 2 workbench in its place. Moving on to the core of this module, you'll see that we've got 2 more instances of Moneycomb on the back wall and on the side here, but this wall to the left is exclusively reserved for this bamboo half-high shelf. This allows you to get 6 large boxes worth of storage using these bamboo and wicker barrels, as well as this bamboo barrel and small box here for additional overflow storage. In this Moneycomb with the furnaces, we've also got a floating bamboo shelf and a small box up on top, and if we push through this door here, you'll see that we've got a vending machine, which is also wired into our electrical system to provide the additional feature of being able to refrigerate any food items that you've got in the vending machine. You can see how my electrical system is tied in here. We've got our 2 combiners being fed by the solar panels on the roof, feeding into these branches and this splitter. The splitter then feeds down into these small batteries down here, charging them up and giving you the opportunity to have multiple circuits running from these power sources. Taking a look at the upkeep costs for this base, you can see that the stone and the metal are not too bad. I mean, that's a pretty decent amount of upkeep for just 24 hours. And when I build this out a little bit later, I'm not going to upgrade everything all the way up to metal in here, just to kind of save you on the initial build costs for the concept, because once you get this floor frame in here for, say, this Moneycomb, it doesn't necessarily need to be upgraded right away because the stone is still incredibly tough to break, and anybody going through Honeycomb will likely switch their path once they see that there's a frame here in front of this window. Keep in mind that making changes to the final upgrade level for your base will obviously impact the upkeep cost. So if you upgrade any of these inner walls to HQM, you're going to see a high quality metal upkeep cost reflected here in the tool cupboard. If you opt for the wood window bars here, you're going to see wood upkeep in the TC there, and any other changes will reflect accordingly. In order to make this module come to life, you are going to need the Jungle Pack DLC. And if you want this light that we've got here, you're going to need the Exhibit Decor Pack DLC as well. But even the standard overhead light that is commonly found in boxes and barrels is a good alternative to this and will still provide light for these planter pots. So that's the tour for each of these 4 base models. Now I'm going to show you how you can build out each of these bases on your own. For this first base design, you're going to want to start off with an incredibly simple footprint. It's going to be 2 square foundations, like so, and a triangle foundation to create the airlock. Now that you have your base kind of laid out, you can lock it in by placing a door here and finish the airlock with that door there. And then you can get to the placements. We're going to want to flip these walls to the hard side in, and I'll show you why by starting with the soft side in and trying to get these placements first. We get our tool cupboard here facing the airlock. Get a couple of large boxes in there, and then we'll place our third large box right here, just like we did in the original model. Now the problem is, when we try to put this door frame here, it won't work. It's being blocked by that large wood box. If we break the box, put the frame down, and then try to replace the box, you'll notice we can't place it because of the wall frame. Let's try this again. Flip those to the hard side in. This time, instead of holding the shift key to snap the tool cupboard, we're going to get down here and get nice and close to it, and we're going to freehand place it. This is a freehand placement, and if we hold the shift key, it kind of pushes away from the wall a little bit more there. Now let's go ahead and try a freehand placement to get it wedged right in there with the wall. A nice good bit of overlap. Go ahead and get this box pushed in there, that one as well, and then we'll place this box right here. Now you'll see there's a little bit more space there between the texture and the edge of that box, just enough to place our wall frame. And that is the difference between using the soft side wall and the hard side wall texture for these stone walls. Just a couple of pixels of extra room. See, it kind of dissolves the TC there on the corner, kind of sucks it into the wall and creates just enough room to get this placement. Not a huge difference, but if you're looking for incredibly compact base designs, it's worth noting that that is a very easy way to save yourself a little bit of space. It's always good to get your double door in when you can. However, it can interfere with the placement for this first furnace. So if you can't get this furnace as far over against this large box as you want, and that should be pretty good right there, then you may have to pick the door up to get a little bit closer. And just like that, we have completed the first model. This is with only the default blueprint items and none of the extra stuff that I recommended collecting. You can see the cost for resources up there in the corner. And if you really want to finish this out the way that I recommend to avoid getting a C4 raid through these stone walls or the foundation, I recommend getting all of these up to sheet metal as quick as you can. Now I've set it so that it breaks down all of the deployables to their fundamental components. If you take a look at the resource cost for this model, with the upgraded core now at sheet metal and all of the other default deployables that I recommend for this design, you're looking at an incredibly cheap starter base. This entire base will take up just 9 slots of your inventory if you're looking at the raw materials, which is not bad when you look at what you've got available to you. So if you're trying to get a start on a server and you can farm up just what you see here, you will have an incredibly solid starter base to begin your wipe. Now let's take a look at the slightly more upgraded model. For the next model, what you're going to want to do is start off with the same footprints. You're going to do 2 squares and a triangle. I recommend flipping these walls yet again to get those placements that you were looking for. Go ahead and get down here, get your TC placed, nice and cozy. Make sure you can still put your frame in here. Excellent. Get that wall flipped around, and I recommend flipping this wall around. And before you go outside, make sure you get your double door placed so you have that extra airlock. Now from out here, you're going to see the soft side wall there. You're going to want to place a foundation, a half wall, and a triangular floor frame. From here, you should be able to clip a floor right in against this frame. It'll place on the inside of this wall. So you'll see when we come in here, there should be a twig shelf in the core. That up to stone, and then you're going to want to go ahead and get your boxes placed while you've got these soft side walls available. Keep in mind that once you have either placed a stone wall or upgraded from a lower material such as wood, you have a 10-minute window to flip this wall around as many times as you like, but after that 10 minutes is up, you won't be able to flip this wall back to the hard side facing out unless you upgrade it further. So make sure that you're keeping an eye on the time that you have left to make those updates. Get your boxes placed like so, and get your small box placed in here as well. Once you got those placements completed, you can flip these walls back around. You won't need them to be hard side in any longer. At this stage, I recommend destroying your buildup out here and completing the honeycomb. And now the only other upgrade you need to raid-proof your base is upgrading the roof to sheet metal. Now you can see the price breakdown here up in the top right hand corner. I'll do a little comparison of the costs for these first two models so you have an idea of what you're getting yourself into if you pick one or the other of these two for your starter. It's really dealer's choice when it comes to which design you want to go with. I do recommend adding the shelf into the first model if that's something that you're going to go with, because it will drastically increase the storage capacity for your base, and storage capacity is one of the most important things to keep in mind when you're getting your start. As a rule of thumb, the smaller your base is, the smaller the target on your head will be, as larger groups tend to prioritize big bases that they assume will have a higher capacity or high tier loot. If you're living out of a 1x2, you will be a target for smaller teams or solos. It's often much easier to defend a raid against a small group or a solo than against a large group, which is why I strongly recommend focusing on compact, small footprint base designs while you get your start and learn the ropes, and eventually you can evolve to playing out of large bases. Now let's take a look at the even more advanced variant of this same footprint. Once again, we're going to start with a 2x1. Except this time, we're going to get our triangles placed in advance. And then from here, we're going to box everything all in. You want to make sure that your tool cupboard is as close to this corner as you can get so that it's nice and easy to reach once we get the final deployables all placed here. So you want to just kind of squeeze in here until you can get that to pop in like so. Nice and secure. Now for the boxes and the campfire, you want to start by placing the campfire first, right here in the very middle of this middle tile. Then you're going to place your boxes around it. I recommend freehand placing these as they'll get a little bit closer that way. Once you've got your boxes down, you can place your wall frame and it should clip in nicely. If you have any trouble with either this box or this box, then you may need to push one of these two a little bit further over. But with that done, we can rotate that to the hard side facing out, and you can either leave these two walls with the hard side in or out, depending on what you think the most likely raid path will be. Most often for furnaces, I will rotate that facing out, and for the tool cupboard, I will leave that facing in. So rather than letting people raid through the doors and then easily pick out this wall to get the tool cupboard, I force them to go through at least one piece of honeycomb or a window if they want to get to the tool cupboard. Now we can go ahead and get our shelf in like so. Then when you're feeling ready for it, you can get your vending machine placed in here. Let's go ahead and get it rotated so that it's facing away from you. You can push it as deep in that corner as you want to, or you can leave it relatively close. Then from here, you should be able to access your tool cupboard and both of these boxes with no trouble at all, as well as everything down here in the core. If you like, you can add your window bars here, and wood window bars are fine if you don't have the metal window bars researched yet. These will extend the raid cost a little bit further than just through an open window, and they will also give you the opportunity to place this floating box right here if you want it.
for a nice little bit of extra storage. I found that with this placement for the research bench, it can help to remove this double door first to get the placement here. So you want it to be nice and snug up against that door frame, and sometimes the door itself can kind of block it out a little bit. So you'll do that, get your large box in down here underneath. Then you can get your barbecue grill down there just like so, and the small box underneath it. And that is this base fully laid out as well. A significantly more advanced version of the original two starter modules. But as always, feel free to make your own changes to these designs as you see necessary. The more experience you have playing Rust, the more easily you will be able to make calls about what items you do or don't need in your base, and about what sort of features you would prefer to have for your wipe. As you can see up in the top right hand corner, for this model we have incorporated the additional use of high quality metal and gears. Those go into the vending machine, so if you don't want to use the vending machine, you won't need those materials for it. However, the vending machine does provide storage within a very strong deployable that can only be accessed from the panel on the back of the vending machine. So that's why I will often use the vending machine in bases like this if I want something that will serve to reinforce the Moneycomb that I've got in the base while still providing a little bit of extra storage. I've got another video linked here that will show you a bunch of concepts for different Moneycomb that you can utilize in your next base design, and some concepts that I'm sure you have never thought of before. So if you're curious about what else you can do with the unused space in your base, check out that video next. Moving on to the final model of the day, we're going to look at the advanced concept for your next 2x1 starter base. We're going to start the same way as the last design. This model is a little bit tricky because the placement for the vending machine and the tool cupboard and the bamboo shelf all tend to conflict with one another when you're trying to get them in this space. So I recommend placing your vending machine first. You want it pushed as far over to this wall on the right as you can, but still a little bit further forward if possible. So something like that should make it reachable past the TC, but still allow room for the shelf to be placed. You may have to experiment with this a little bit. The shelf and the vending machine don't play very well together, which is kind of the biggest issue with this design. So if you're not going to use the vending machine, I completely understand, because it does create some issues here and there. And it can be a little tough to reach depending on where you're at. You should be able to still reach it from here, just past the tool cupboard. Once you get your shelf placed, you want to double check to make sure that you can place this wall frame, because occasionally the placement of that shelf will block the placement of this frame. So you may need to place the frame first, then go back in with the shelf and see where it will fit. Like that shouldn't be too bad. Let's see if we can still access the vending machine from here. Yep, okay, so that's not too bad. It's a little bit skewed, but sometimes you have to make sacrifices for these placements to work. Not too bad. Should have flipped this wall back to soft side in before you forget, and you can do the same with the vending machine wall if you like. Go ahead and get your wall frames in there and there. Then you're going to want to place your engineering workbench. It may help also to place it from this angle, so play around with your angles here. Excellent. That's about as good as it gets. You get a small box underneath there as well. Oftentimes, boxes will just snap really nicely onto these bars here and there, but if you want to kind of pick and choose where that stack starts, then go ahead and place a laser detector where you want that first box to rest, like right there, and then you should be able to get a box to sit right up on top of that laser detector. Just like that. If you have trouble getting placements to stack the way you want, then just place another barrel or something tall somewhere else in the room that you can stand on. That'll give you a little bit of extra height. And like I said in the tour, you can use either the ceiling fluorescent light like we had there, or the regular default ceiling light here. Either option works. If you really want to add the Tesla coil to the design, it's very easy to do so. Just put a switch somewhere inside your base, get your Tesla coil set up somewhere else, preferably in your airlock. Get it wired up to a switch, and then wire that switch to a battery. The more voltage that goes into the switch, the more power your Tesla coil will have to welcome any visitors to your base. Of course, you don't want to forget to upgrade the roof to sheet metal and any other parts of the base that you want. Now, if you take a look over at the resource cost, you can see that this module will also require 1 tech trash for the Tesla coil. So if you want the Tesla coil, you're going to need to cough up some tech trash or find that out in your adventures.
One more tip for those of you just getting started, or for anyone looking for those pesky CCTV camera codes for the large oil rig. Check out the awesome resource pages my friends at Bamboo Gaming have put together, combining dozens of wiki entries and battle-tested Rust settings to help you better understand or optimize your time on the island. While you're there, you might see some interesting content from other talented Rust creators, or even some of my stuff. Thanks again to Bamboo Gaming for helping us Rust creators expand our platforms and share resources with our community. To recap, you've seen 4 optimized 2x1 starter base models that you can use in your next Rust adventure, as well as a number of tricks and tips that will help you down the road. If you're looking for more exploits and adventures, please consider subscribing to the channel. This has been your friend Spilldrop with another tutorial video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.